So J.K. Rowling appears to be quite vengeful these days, and to be honest with you, I quite like it. Now, I appreciate that J.K. Rowling is, in her heart of hearts, a feminist, and so we are not the most natural of bedfellows, as it were. I'm, of course, not a feminist, but I do agree with many of the fundamental points. Women should have their own single-sex spaces, as men, I think, ought to have their single-sex spaces. And, of course, I don't think that you can actually change your sex by putting on a dress or just identifying as something different. And so it's not that she's a million miles away from my position. She just has a bit more liberal in her than I do. But that's not what I'm making this video about. I'm making this video about her complete lack of forgiveness for the people who have wronged her. Now, I appreciate a good solid arc as much as anyone. And so I was kind of enjoying watching J.K. Rowling in front of 14 million people on Twitter give those people who wronged her an absolute leathering. I actually really enjoyed it. I actually really enjoy watching the people who get what they deserve, getting what they deserve. And she is just not giving them any quarter. Again, I'm totally here for that. I think these people, they can fuck themselves. I'm sorry, I'm totally with her on this. Like I said, got my disagreements, but on this particular thing, they can just pack it in. Absolutely pack it in. So Emma Watson did an interview recently, as the Telegraph reports, where she insisted that she still treasures J.K. Rowling. Now, I mean, that's very interesting turnaround, considering for the last decade or so, J.K. Rowling and all of the other Harry Potter not J.K. Rowling, Emma Watson. Emma Watson has been like at the forefront of intersectional feminism. Back in 2014, I used to make videos about her addressing the UN, I think it was, UN Women's Conference or something, with this radical intersectional feminism. And her asking, why isn't everyone a feminist? Because there were good reasons not to be a feminist, frankly. But she has been hard on J.K. Rowling for a long time, because J.K. Rowling was like, guys, I think women might be female. I think that might be a core component of being a woman. And they're like, oh, so you're a TERF. And J.K. Rowling was like, yeah, okay, maybe. I guess I'm the most famous TERF on earth. And I guess I just happen to be the author of the Harry Potter franchise, to, you know, I still control all the rights, making me a billionaire and giving me a massive audience. I think actually I might be able to beat you on this issue, fundamentally because what you're saying isn't true. And secondly, because I have the ability to speak to millions of people whenever I tweet. So yeah, it turns out they lost that argument. And again, they were really vicious to her. Like, there was one guy, I can't remember which one it was. It wasn't one of the main ones. I'm not a Harry Potter fan. I'm too old for it. I didn't grow up with it. I haven't watched any of the films. So, but there was this one guy who I understand is like a bit part, not bit part, but like a side character, who actually did come out and say, no, I like JK, and, you know, I feel an obligation and loyalty to her because she made me what I am. And despite this, despite the fact that these people owe J.K. Rowling their careers, right? Without J.K. Rowling, these people don't have careers. Right? They've done nothing since. Absolutely nothing of interest since. She made them rich and famous. And if it wasn't for Rowling, then they wouldn't have what they have. And yet when it was fashionable, go back, 5-10 years, when it was fashionable, they were going so hard at her and calling her all names under the sun. And J.K. Rowling got it in the neck, man. Like, all of the radicalized transgenders, they were gunning for her. I mean, they hate her so much. They truly hate her so much because she fundamentally was a progressive like them, until the point where it was like, oh wait, that's not true though. And they were like, well, if you don't believe this is true, you're an evil right-winger, you're a TERF, you're whatever, and we hate you and hope you die. And so J.K. Rowling's just had it non-stop in the neck from millions of these psychopaths. And Emma Watson was quite happy to stoke this up. She was quite happy to stand side by side with them and say, yeah, no, J.K. Rowling's wrong. Trans women are women. It's like, no, that's not true. And the argument, I think, has been lost by the left on that now. And I think actually what we're seeing here is the proof of that. This is, I think, the kind of revealed preference of Emma Watson. She's seeing, oh, look at which way the wind is blowing. Actually, maybe J.K. Rowling was right on this stuff. Actually, maybe I am. I'm gonna. Hi, J.K. Hi, Joanne. Can we be friends again? And the answer is obviously no, right? The answer is obviously no. So she says she has. It was her deepest wish to hope that people who don't agree with my opinion still love me, and I hope I can keep loving people who I don't necessarily share the same opinion with. Yeah, but it wasn't just a difference of opinion, was it? It was a full-on character attack on J.K. Rowling, who, as far as I can tell, just didn't really deserve it. I mean, I don't think she's actually done anything wrong other than being a TERF, and I don't consider that wrong. So what's the problem here exactly? But yeah, anyway, and you can see from the Telegraph reporting, her remarks are an apparent softening of her position after she and her co-stars spoke out against the author's criticism of trans ideology. Rowling has faced a years-long backlash, including death threats, for expressing her belief that biological men cannot become women. Again, it's actually utterly balmy the way that J.K. Rowling has been treated. Because she, of course, if you go back to the 2010s, the early 2010s, she was a bit of a running joke because she would just come out and be like, oh yeah, by the way, that character was gay. That character was gay. You're gay. Everyone's gay, because it was fashionable to be very pro-gay in that time. And so she was like, yeah, I'm a progressive. I'm very pro-gay. I'm on that. And then it became fashionable to be pro-transgender. And J.K. Rowling was like, oh no, I can't do that. And so she's had it in the neck. And there's been a certain kind of radicalization, or shall we say, sort of hardening of Rowling's position that, again, I actually quite like, because fundamentally on this issue of what a woman is, she is completely correct. She was given hell for it. And now, once you've been through the fire, you are still correct in your position. Fuck those people. Don't give them an inch, because they don't deserve it. So when she was criticized, she was like, well, you're cozying up to a movement intent on eroding women's hard-won rights. Obviously true. And not just hard-won rights, just the ability to access a single-sex space when you want to go to the toilet or have a shower or something, right? That is mad that we ever permitted that, and yet here we are. And when asked last year if she could ever forgive the stars, Rowling suggested that they save their apologies for traumatized detransitioners and vulnerable women reliant on single-sex spaces. Completely rational, completely lucid. Yes, people who've detransitioned, who've been through the process and realize this is nonsense and actually it's ruined my body. Yeah, these people carry trauma with them. And of course, vulnerable women rely on single-sex spaces they shouldn't have men in. I shouldn't even need to say it, but here we go. Anyway, Watson said that she was upset that she was never able to have a discussion with Rowling about it. She would always keep and cherish her time with the novelist. You were calling her a transphobe. You were calling her a bigot. You were calling her a bad person right up until right now, in fact. What changed? Right. That became unfashionable. The victims of transgenderism started piling up and started speaking out. And it became obvious that actually this was not true. And actually it was opening the door to a bunch of really unsavory men to be able to say, actually, I'm not, I want access to that when I shouldn't have access to that. For example, Karen White, a transgender man who went to a women's prison after raping a woman and then raped women in this prison. Oh, what a surprise. This killed Nicola Sturgeon's career. This probably is one of the things that destroyed Jo Swinson, if you remember her. It's genuinely amusing watching how many careers have died on the altar of transgenderism. And now Emma Watson's like, yeah, I think I'm going to sidle back over and be like, hi, JK, how you doing? But anyway, so the thing I'm most upset about is that a conversation was never made possible. Well, maybe if you weren't publicly attacking her because you thought it was the fashionable thing to do, she would have talked to you. When asked if she remained open to having that dialogue one day, she responded, yeah, and I always will. I believe in that. As if she's the victim of this. As if she's the person. You were the instigator. You completely instigated this. Anyway, she goes on. Blah, 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 right? That's the essential nature of it. And J.K. Rowling replies to this on Twitter, and she's just like, nah. Right? Obviously, she's like, look, she can believe anything she wants. It's a free country. However, Emma and Dan in particular have both made it clear over the last few years they think our former professional association gives them the right, nay obligation, to critique me and my views in public. Years after they finished acting in Potter, they would continue to assume the role of de facto spokespeople for the world I created. When you've known people since they were 10 years old, it's hard to shake a certain protectiveness. Until quite recently, I hadn't managed to throw off the memory of children who needed to be gently coached through the dialogue in a big scary film studio. For the past few years, I've repeatedly declined invitations from journalists to comment on Emma specifically, most notably the witch trials of J.K. Rowling. And again, just to be clear, the level of vitriol and abuse Rowling has endured is just off the charts. The television presenter which in the attached clip highlights Emma's all-witcher speech, and in truth, that was the turning point for me. It had a postscript that hurt far more than the speech itself. Emma asked someone to pass on a handwritten note from her to me, which contained the single sentence, "I'm so sorry for what you're going through." Brackets, she has my phone number. And why were you stoking it up by coming out and going, yeah, she is a transphobe? This was back when the death, rape, and torture threats against me were at their peak, at a time when my personal security measures had to be tightened considerably, and I was constantly worried for my family's safety. Emma had just publicly poured more petrol on the flames, yet thought a one-line expression of concern from her would reassure me of her fundamental sympathy and kindness. And that's exactly the point, right? That's exactly the point, right? It would have been appropriate for Emma Watson and the other Harry Potter actors to lean into their relationship with Rowling, right? And say, look, it doesn't matter whether we disagree with her on the final points of trans ideology. What matters is that she is my friend, and I don't approve of the way that you're treating her. Like, that would have been the appropriate thing to do. But instead, Emma Watson took solace in the mob against Rowling. And so I'm not surprised that Rowling is just like, I'm not very interested in reconciliation here, right? Basically, she says, Emma has so little experience of real life, she's ignorant of how ignorant she is. She'll never need any of the things that a lot of women often need. And then goes on to say, I wasn't a multimillionaire at 14. I lived in poverty while writing the book that made Emma famous. Therefore, I understand from my own life experience that what the trashing of women's rights in which Emma has so enthusiastically participated means to women and girls without her privileges. The greatest irony here is that had Emma not decided in her most recent interview to declare that she loves and treasures me, a change of tack that I suspect she's adopted because she's noticed a full-throated condemnation of me is no longer quite as fashionable as it was, I may never have been this honest. Now that is very interesting, isn't it? I actually hadn't read the entire thing here. It's quite a long post. And it's interesting how she has also noticed that actually the tide is turning against transgender ideology and wokeism generally. And so interesting how she also views this as a kind of bellwether event, right? But then there was other people who are very much on the same side as, well, Emma Watson used to be, who are less prepared to let it go, I guess. So J.K. Rowling posts, when persecution is redefined to mean not being allowed to reorganize society based on unfalsifiable feelings, to compel everyone else's speech and belief, and to take rights away from other protected groups, you'll be absolutely right. As in, my freedom to live without being persecuted by the TERFs, says this transgender person. And Boy George, the 80s pop star, says the right to be left alone by a rich, bored bully. It's like, right, yeah, I mean, Boy George has always been a bit fruity, obviously. For anyone who doesn't know, Boy George is a man who dressed as a woman all through the 80s and sang pop songs. But that was fine. It was kind of like eccentric back then, right? It was considered just eccentric. And Rowling just replies, again, the gloves are just off, right? And I love it when the gloves come off against these people. She's like, look, you're a man and I'm a woman, so that's different. You've been wealthy and famous since your early 20s. I didn't become well known until I was well over 30. I've never been given 15 months for handcuffing a man to a wall and beating him with a chain. What? I'm out of the loop. And so I posted, I was like, what? And a bunch of people were posting this Wikipedia article where, yes, he went to jail for chaining an escort to the wall and then beating him with a chain back in like 2009. I was like, geez, I didn't even know about that. Like, God. But the fact that she's just like throwing it out there is just really funny. And of course, she believes in freedom of speech and belief, which is great. And she basically just tells him in very, in no uncertain terms, just really fuck yourself. And honestly, this was, I don't even know why I'm talking about this. Like, I just like this kind of energy, this kind of, no, I'm right, and I've been persecuted over this belief, and I don't care about your opinion. How about, and like the idea, oh, I don't want to be bullied by J.K. Rowling. Oh man, shut up. Shut your fucking mouth then, because your lot have been atrocious towards it. And I say this as someone with no particular ideological sympathies for Rowling at all. But I just like to see someone standing up for themselves and go, no, fuck this mob, fuck these lunatics, I don't care. And now she's won the war against you. I'm enjoying watching her putting the boot in. I'm not going to lie. You deserve it. You guys absolutely deserve it. Good on her, you know what I mean?